Welcome to the Cherry Picker After Dark, the Patreon exclusive podcast where we also like to kill people. Sometimes, really, I don't know. It's always different. Yeah. And it's us. You know. But they're familiar with who we are, so I just feel like the introduction is different. But I'm dying to hear your quote from the movie that we are talking about.
Yeah. Sure took you guys long enough to get here. What if someone was trying to strangle me or fuck me up the ass or something? Eddie of Edward's Truth.
I love that line. Today we are talking about, or this month, we're talking about Wild Things. The salacious, sleazy, very sleazy
all the S
thriller.
words, sensational.
I feel like this is another genre film because I would just say the genre of this is 90s. That's what it is, because the late 90s was such a smorgasbord of like everything, and that is like, this might be one of the best examples of that movie, where just like you got the hot teen drama, but you got like the intrigue and the like the detective story and the sex and I mean, there is a little bit of horror in this, like Florida's a pretty scary place. All I could think of, because we just recorded the Megan one, is like because there was the line about Katie going to stay with her parents in Florida. So and it's just like,
enough said.
It's like, I've seen wild things. We're not sending the kid to Florida. Also, the line that you that you mentioned, like that you quoted, because I just like that vision, or really like Neve Campbell in this movie feels to me like the version of Sidney Prescott that you would see if Rob Zombie ever did like a remake of Scream.
I remember you saying that at some point in the past, and now that I've experienced Wild Things, I couldn't agree more. It was odd to me. I was sitting there watching this movie for the first time in its entirety, mind you, and I especially Neve Campbell, I kept wondering, why did she want to do this movie? And maybe it was because of the outlandishness of it, like, the opportunities to do things that maybe no one had ever asked her to do before. I don't know. I haven't found any interview footage of her talking about what attracted her to the project. I don't know if you have more insight to that than I do, but that's the first thing that occurs to me in this discussion of ours.
So you're not a big fan of this then?
It's not that. But it is. I was taking notes watching it, and I did keep throwing my notepad down and just raising my hands up, going, "What am I watching?" And I'm stunned, because it is so startlingly 90s and predictably Florida. Sorry, Florida. Any Floridians listening? You kind of know, right? I mean, people say shit about Hollywood and LA. I totally get it. So I'm sure I'm not offending.
Canada,
I hope I'm not offending too much. Yeah, right? So there you go. We all got our things. But the baggage that comes with the places we claim as our own. But, okay. I didn't understand as I was watching. I was just like, what is this movie? Because I don't think it's bad. But I don't think it's good either. It's this wonderful, delectable, unique flavor all on its own that I'm intrigued by, that I might watch again at some point. I don't know, but what about you?
No, I agree with that. That's a very good assessment, because it's not a good movie. It's like, for all intents and purposes, this is smut. I almost feel like this is. Like, this could have been a Paul Verhoeven movie.
Totally. That is exactly what I said when I was watching it.
Yeah. Like, it was just missing that, like, that certain ingredient that Paul Verhoeven brings to it. Like, I think that if it was Paul Verhoeven, we would have gotten a lot more emphatic not dance moves, but just kind of like pushing aside.
Girlishness, like with a kind of violence to it, like
Yeah.
it would have been a lot more exploitative,
Because it already is like
actually.
extremely exploitative. But I think, but just for what it is, it feels like maybe it's almost like a even saying this because there's like full on like tits and A and P and in this movie, so it's not exactly like a WB or CW by today's definition version of a Paul Verhoeven movie. Like it's full on. It's just there. It's like it is an exploitation movie in the greatest sense, but it's so campy as well. And I think that's what I would imagine that's what attracted like all of the actors to this, because this also has like a huge like star-studded cast of people. Like you've got Bill Murray, you've got Robert Wagner in this, and then obviously like Kevin Bacon, Matt Dillon, Neve Campbell, Denise Richards, who was still kind of like, I don't want to say that was unknown, but yeah, she was on her trajectory that really like peaked probably around like the next couple. I'd say like by the time Valentine came out, that was like the pinnacle of her career. But she had been around for a while. She had been acting, and what's funny is that I looked up on IMDb. She was born in 1971, so this was 1998. So she's actually 27 in this movie, playing a, I guess, 17-year-old, 16-year-old, whatever. So. Yeah. However old she is. So all I can think is just like, there's no way that girl is underage. Like she's like full on like reached womanhood. So it's always funny that, because this was back in the 90s when like Scream is a perfect example, when everybody who was like supposed to be 16, 17 are all played by actors who are 26 at the most, so
or older.
Yeah, because like the whole like 90210 era where you had not Brandon, but the other, not Jason Priestley, who's the other guy?
Luke Perry,
right. Because wasn't he like almost 30 during that?
He was older. Yeah, he was definitely. I mean, he had the creases in his face to show like he'd lived, but they tried to just sell that as like the James Dean darkness that they were trying to market as kind of like alien to the sunny Beverly Hills 90210 kids. But anyway, it was definitely of that era still.
Yeah. And I love that, because it's just like you don't see movies like this anymore. Like we were talking about that last month with Jawbreaker. Because I feel, and also because Ryan Showers tweeted this of just kind of like this trifecta of movies, and I'm sure we're going to cover this third one. In fact, I know we will at some point, but the three like big 90s movies that are not horror, but like kind of part of this like horror adjacent, even though I'm sure people would say that Wild Things is not horror adjacent, but let's say just like the 90s teen culture adjacent, which is Jawbreaker, Wild Things, and then Cruel Intentions. And I guess, and I know you'll hate this, because he was like, what is your rating of like all three, or like ranking? I don't want to, personally, I wouldn't want to commit to anything, especially since we haven't discussed Cruel Intentions yet. Maybe we can go over that when we finally do, but I think, I mean, just to kind of put it out there tentatively, I think that Wild Things would probably be the third of all those movies, and Jawbreaker would probably be the first. So we'll see like afterwards, but I'm just, if I had to guess for myself right now.
Yeah. It's been many years since I saw Cruel Intentions also, and I don't even know if I sat down and watched that one from beginning to end. I think I've seen it in its entirety, but not all in one sitting. Like when it was one of those things where when it was on satellite or cable, like whenever you're flipping through, you stop and you watch it.
Yeah.
But
well, what's funny about like especially comparing Wild Things to Cruel Intentions, and even like really like Jawbreaker as well, they're so aesthetically different and tonally different from each other, because like Cruel Intentions is obviously, I mean, it's the same subject matter, just in terms of just like beautiful, young people doing despicable things, mostly like based in high school. But like in Cruel Intentions, it's such a much more opulent, wealthy, like rich environment. Like everything just looks expensive. It's just like these are kids who are like probably like like went to piano recitals growing up and like, you know, are very cultured, whereas this is based in Florida. You know, like
Enough said.
but and then with Jawbreaker, it has that very distinct, like we were talking about, like we're not really sure what era in time they're encapsulating, because it's like there was like 1920s all the way to 80s aesthetic. So it just like all these movies, like that might be why there's like kind of like have bubbled to the top, because they're each so unique in the way that they look and tell the story that they're telling. Because all three stories, I mean, Cruel Intentions isn't so much about murder, but there's death, or, you know, but still
and
like
darkness. Like there's a darker layer than kind of like a She's All That, or I don't know, Scooby Doo, or you know, whatever else.
You know what? That's the perfect way to describe these movies, because it's like when stuff was coming out like She's All That, like just like the teen rom-coms, these were the teen movies, because these were arguably, like, even though they were more mature in theme and were probably rated for adults, like these were teen movies, but they were like the darker, like the nasty underbelly of what you don't see in these teen movies. So that's a perfect example of just like She's All That, but like on heroin, you know?
if She's All That, like it had some kind of like darker secret, like that could double down, like not only was he using you this whole time, and not only were you a bet, but, and then fill in the blank with something even more scandalous and salacious and all those other S words that we were touching on earlier.
Did you, just because, you know, we sometimes forget about this, but did you write out a premise or something that
I located one that I can read? Yes.
All right. Only if you want to. It seems like you're
sure.
Okay.
So this one is written by J.J. Jackson, and I didn't modify it because I figured it pretty much said it all, although it does offer spoilers, so if you've listened this far, you know.
Patreon supporters, please watch these movies before. I don't know where they're available, like to stream or not, but I know that like I just bought the 4K from Arrow. That came out. And I think that's your friend John.
That's
Carlos,
what I watched.
Had it. You watched
he screened it for me, and he had that.
Also, I just want to, before you get to the thing, before I forget, I just want to thank Eric Champney, because he provided the footage of the movie that Andre will be using for overlays in this, because I can't rip 4K onto my thing. I don't know. I'll have to look into that.
Right.
But thank you, Eric.
Wow. Thank you. In South Florida, a high school counselor is accused of rape by a manipulative rich girl and her trailer trash classmate. The cop on the case begins to suspect a conspiracy and dives into an elaborate and devious web of greed and betrayal to find the truth behind the wild things.
You did the thing.